On this week's edition of Gunn On One, former NFL player Chris Long joins us to break down the Eagles. He also talks about his transition from player to media mogul. And he tells us exactly what Carson Wentz should say to outside criticism. Get ready for an uncensored edition of Gunn On One right now. Welcome to another edition of Gunn On One, the podcast. I'm Derrick Gunn, and we finally have some positive news to talk about as the Philadelphia Eagles finally get in the win column, and more importantly, all of a sudden, they're in first place with a losing record. That just goes to tell you how bad the NFC East is. So we're going to talk about the Eagles, and we're going to talk about some other things, of course, on this podcast. We don't like just talking X's and O's. And my guest for this podcast is one of my favorites, man. 11-time NFL vet, 2-time Super Bowl champion, son of a Hall of Famer. Eagles fans know him. They love him. Chris Long, man, thank you so much for being on Gunn On One today. Much appreciated.
D Gunn, man, it's good to see you on the platform, man. This podcasting thing is fun. It's a nice lifestyle. You're gonna love it.
I'm starting to find that out now. You're retired, 2 years removed from the game. What's it like now being a full-time dad?
It's awesome, man. You know, it was part of the reason why I got out. You know, just my dad played 13 years. I kind of knew from him telling me in retrospect how tough it was, and of course, I was born, and my brothers were born like early to middle of his career. My two sons, Luke and Waylon, we held off, you know, till I was damn near a senior citizen. And that was great because, you know, I missed some things early, but I was also smart enough and mature enough to realize what I'm missing if I'm not paying attention. And also, like, know that if I get out by the time, you know, Waylon's 3 years old, it's awesome. I got his whole, you know, life ahead of me and seeing him play sports and all that stuff. I don't have to be tired from practice or home at 8 o'clock, out the door at 7 in the morning. Mm-hmm. It's been cool, man. It's been special.
So you go from being this dominant NFL public figure, and all of a sudden now you're full-time husband, full-time dad. Are you one of those full-time husbands who spend a lot of time saying, yes, dear, I understand, dear?
Nah, D-Gun, so we're talking offline. I got this, and my wife is awesome. She played sports and played lacrosse at Virginia, and we met there, and she's actually from Morristown there, so technically a Jersey girl, even though it's the southern tip, and so she's got the attitude to go with it, and we're pretty straight up with each other. Like I subscribe to the, hey, it's a 50-50 thing. We make the decisions together, you know. She's going to tell me when I'm being ridiculous, I'll do the same. And a marriage is a partnership. That's the way I look at it, which sounds dangerous, doesn't it, Tigo?
You know, okay, so it is a partnership, but you honestly believe it's 50-50. If you sit back and think for a moment, you will realize it's more like 60-40, 70-30, and not in your favor, my man.
Listen, when it comes to those two kids, I mean, Meg holds down the fort, man. You know, like we're both, as you said, being retired now, it's nice for me to be around a lot, but we were talking about it. My schedule in the fall is crazy. Now in the off season, it's nice because I can make it a little bit more, and I'd find ways to keep myself busy with the foundation and with podcasts and stuff. But still, my wife Meg is a trooper, and just like most moms, I don't know what I'd do as a dad without her. But listen, man, I make don't get it twisted. I make my fair share of decisions. I hold my head.
Okay, I'll let you think that, Chris. But anyway, did you know that you are a part of NFL history? Did you know that you were one of only 5 NFL players to ever win a Super Bowl back-to-back years with 2 different teams? Did you know that?
I didn't remember who the players are exactly. I believe, is Ken Norton one of them?
That's one.
Me, LeGarrette.
2.
Was Dion one?
3.
I can't think of the other one.
Brandon Browner.
Brandon Brown. Okay, so listen, when that happened, the coolest part of it was being able to share that title with LG. Like, we were two guys, older guys, you know, especially as a running back. He's a little younger than me, but he was older, and people were starting to count him out. And just really cool, because when you leave New England on your own, under your own power, people are like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And then when you go play in Philly, listen, I saw the Eagles as being a competitive football team. And I've told this story. We were getting ready for the Super Bowl in the 28-3 game, and we were watching Falcons tape, and you guys played the Falcons that year and played them really tough at home. And I remember watching DLine and saying, that reminds me of the brand of football I was used to playing in the prime of my career. And I'd love to go play somewhere like that. After I thought about it after the season, I was like, I'd love to go play somewhere like that where we got a chance to be a part of something. Okay, I did this year where I went and played out of position all year and, you know, did whatever was asked of me and joined an established program where people are like, even though there's no ring chasing in the NFL, it's not like basketball. It's like the Patriots, for all their greatness, still had to scratch and claw for 6 championships in 20 years. Like, I got the, hey, you're ring chasing feeling. And then I was like, I want to go be a part of something and have some fun and just see where the chips fall. And that was, and so LG was the same way. I remember he called me. He's like, what do you want to do? Like, I was like, come down here, bro. Like, I'm telling you, you're going to like these people. And then to see him sign, it was like, we're on this journey together. So that was a special moment for me and LG after that whole year.
Well, the current status of the Philadelphia Eagles were not as dominant as the team that you played with. I mean, they've had some struggles. They finally got it right. And let's start on the defensive side first before we get to the offense. The last couple of games, the defense has played much better. But tell me some of the kinks in the armor when you look at this current defensive personnel that stands out to you.
Well, obviously the linebacking core is always in flux. It feels like it just doesn't feel like Jim. And listen, to each his own. It doesn't feel like Jim places a huge premium on linebackers and Howie and Jim. The back end has been in flux. I can barely keep up with who's playing where. You know, I think one of the biggest challenges was coming in the season is you've solidified the corner position. But then you have a bunch of question marks at safety and then like leadership to boot with Malcolm leaving and that sort of thing. And so I think the D-line's the best D-line in the league. I think when they're humming, they're the best D-line in the league. I think people made a big deal about Washington, and I think those guys are really fun to watch. But it was like after the first game, Washington had 8 sacks. We gave them 6. We literally gave them 6. I'm watching that game, and I'm like, I could go line up and get 3 right now, right off the streets. With some, you know, if you don't miss the layups, which I've done before, but I mean, but like, I really do think if this defense wants to be competitive, and they have to do it against teams unlike the Bengals or the Nick Mullen-led Niners, like they have to go do that this weekend. They have to go do this against the elite teams in the league because right now the offense is struggling. And it's like last night you watched New England and Kansas City play. And I had the Chiefs giving almost 2 touchdowns. But what was apparent to me was New England was playing like they didn't have any cushion. And when a defense knows they have no cushion, it makes no sense, but they always elevate their game. So I think that's what that defensive line has to do. And guys have got to step up in the secondary, and they did that last week. I mean, they did that 2 nights ago. We had sacks from what we saw Ridgeway show up. Avery showed up. Avery had a sack, forced a turnover. Those are the things that get lost in the shuffle, the forcing of a turnover. Derrick Barnett played a great game. Josh Sweat's showing up. The defense, BG was a closer. I mean, BG had a great game. Like, this is what you need out of that D-line. And Fletch takes up all the attention. So, I mean, if they can do that week in and week out, this team has a shot to weather this storm.
When you look at the D-line overall, Malik Jackson, Javon Hargrave, and you were talking about how dominant they were. Last 2 games, they've had 13 quarterback sacks. They have 17, 18 for the season. Is this D-line better than the D-line you played with in 2017?
I think so. I think we were deeper at edge personally, just because I feel like I gave them something on the edge there depth-wise. But I think that I take that back. If Josh Sweat realizes his potential, I mean, my man is real twitchy, and Derrick's playing well. I think it's a better D-line. I do. because you have more depth inside and you have more guys that can play. This is what they've been after for 2-3 years and they thought they had this when they brought in Malik Jackson last year. And of course he got hurt right off the bat, but like they were with the Hargrave edition with Malik. They've been looking for guys that can play 3 downs inside and now they have that. So I do think the D-line is better than our Super Bowl D-line. I can say that without taking that personal. They're just a deep group, and you got to lean on your strength as a defense. That's what it is right now. But the secondary D, I mean, the secondary last Cravon had a big strip sack. These are the plays that you're going to remember if you slide in. These are big plays. Rodney McLeod on the pick.
Yep.
I mean, even Slay on the Hail Mary. Like, just guys stepped up and made plays, and that's what it's going to take.
Is Jim Schwartz running the exact same scheme as when you played? Are you seeing some variations from your time here in Philadelphia?
Well, they're playing more man, I think, and
okay.
And I felt like I could be wrong because I barely ever paid attention to what was going on behind me. I really didn't. Like my job was simple in a Jim Schwartz defense. I just got done with a playbook that was 50 pounds in New England, so I was like, I'm gonna get vertical, but like. I think now you feel like Slay adds something that you didn't have in 17. And also Roby Coleman, that was a nice pickup. You've been missing a guy that can do that sort of thing since Pat Robinson. I don't think you're necessarily, I don't want to say they filled that void because Pat was amazing. Right. But like, these are the little pieces that they've added that I think they did a good job with. You had a corner, you had the kid from LA, Roby Coleman, and you had interior depth. So personnel-wise, I think they did a good job defensively, to be fair. And adding Slay allows you to do more man-up stuff. And their blitzes got home on Sunday. They blitzed at the right time.
On the other side of the ball, man, they want to run the franchise quarterback out of town right now. You know how it is. This is Philadelphia, man. They want to run the quarterback out of town. Tell me what you're seeing from Carson Wentz that maybe that has been missing from the Carson Wentz who was on an MVP run back in 2017, because obviously his game is not where we thought it would be at this point.
Listen, I'm a guy who spent most of my career in bad circumstances, so I'm always going to see those circumstances and point them out when I see that, because there are very few players, and maybe Carson isn't one of those players,
right,
that can just thrive no matter what you throw at him. I mean, that's not to say he's not a guy with top 5 quarterback potential, but they're only like Russell Wilson is it. Like you can throw anything at Russell Wilson. He's perpetually got the worst O-line. He's turned, and Seattle's done a good job of turning late round wide receivers and guys you wouldn't expect into just, something that you can work with. And there's just not a lot of guys that can deal with what Carson's dealt with show me who can. Like Aaron Rodgers threw to nobody last night.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. We know that's a slam dunk. Russell Wilson's a Hall of Famer. We know that's a slam dunk. What we can get out of Carson is fringe to top 5 quarterback play. And I think that he has crossed into that echelon at different times in his career. Right now, he's not there. You have to look at the total picture. You throw in the guys that I call them like silhouette guys, shadow pictures in the program. Guys that didn't. He met guys on the plane that he was throwing to. It felt like the kid Fulgham. I'm like, great play, and I don't even know who to yell at. Like
me either.
so listen, that's a real thing. The O-line at different times, 4 out of 5 guys down. He is shaky right now. I was the biggest Carson defender last year because I feel like just people love to hate the kid, and he's on pace with like Donovan McNabb in a bunch of areas, and he's throwing to nobody last year and puts up these gaudy numbers despite it. He's got to make the easy throws. That's what we can judge him on. And people asked Doug about layups, and Doug took issue with it, but he's still missing a few of those. And I think the biggest thing besides the intermediate accuracy, which I'm seeing is a little bit off, when he extends plays too much, especially on like first down, the pick, not backed up, but in their own territory, just eat the ball. You're so talented. We want to see that in the right spot. But, I think if you show him that when he held the ball Sunday night for over 4 seconds, he was 1 for 6 with a pick and 13 yards. Like just be in phase. You're plenty good. You don't have anything to prove. Here's what you can prove to Philly fans. Hit the layups, and everybody knows you're throwing to nobody.
See, tell me if you agree or disagree with me. I think the best Carson is the Carson who's outside the pocket using his athleticism. I don't think Carson is effective being that stationary target in the pocket. That's not his game. Let him get outside the corral, man, and use all of the gifts that God gave him. Yeah,
I think that's what you see in general. And a lot of times, you roll people out to cover deficiencies. Baker Mayfield, the minute it felt like in Cincy that they started moving the pocket for him, everybody was like, thank you. And, like a guy like Mitch Trubisky, who's now sat and should be sat, the best thing for him was to use his legs. But Carson is a guy that has elite, like, franchise QB talent. There's nothing really
right.
It's just that, like, this guy sees the field a little bit better outside the pocket, and he's got the size, the athleticism to roll right and throw strikes like he did a couple of times on occasion. That's when he really looked good the other night. And don't get me wrong, he had a pretty good game considering the circumstances, but he's still shaking it off. I don't know what it is. Sometimes I feel like some of these intermediate throws are low. I don't know if you see that, D-Gun, but when you ask the quarterback why a guy's missing low and you watch a slow motion replay, it's almost like he's guiding it and aiming it. I think part of it's mental. And I think when you've been in crappy situations long enough, and it's been a while now for him since he's felt like 2017, you press. And I don't think he needs to press. He's so talented. And what's the alternative? Like, Philly fans, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
you want to start over and watch him go to Indy with Frank?
Yeah. You're right. Good point. Very valid point.
We would feel pretty dumb if we saw him in a place like Indy lighting it up and looking more like 2017 Carson. You got to put the weapons around him.
See, I don't know if Carson would ever admit it, maybe once he retires, but I wonder if the outside criticism in some ways is affecting him. This was a young man who was a legend at North Dakota State. He comes here as his future saver of the NFL franchise of the Philadelphia Eagles. Everything's going upward the first few years of his career. Now, all of a sudden, it is kind of a bumpy road right now. And as you know, being a former professional athlete, everybody handles criticism internally a lot different. Some people, it's like water off a duck's back. Other people take that stuff to heart, and it starts to affect you mentally when you step between those stripes.
You're absolutely right. And I mean, I've never been a quarterback, so I have no idea. I was talking about Trubisky the other day. Yeah. I feel bad for the kid because all he's done is the best he can, and the evaluators made the mistake, not him. I mean, but I've never played in a city so big where I was playing such a big role as a franchise quarterback. And I can only imagine coming from North Dakota State to end up in Philly. I have been a high draft pick, and for the first, 20 games or 24 games of my career, I'm in my second season, and I'm watching Derrick Barnett. That's why I really root for Derrick, is because I'm in my second season. Halfway through the season, I got 0 sacks as a first round pick. I had 5 the year before or whatever, but there was a time where I'm reading bust next to my name on Google. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know what it, and then next thing you know, second half of the season, 5 sacks and then 40 the next 4 years. So for me, it was at a certain point, you have to get beat up so bad externally that it can't hurt you anymore. That you say I've hit rock bottom. Carson's got to feel like, hey, I've already hit my rock bottom. It can't get any worse than, some of these moments I've had the last year and a half. I've had some real highs, but then there's been the sequences like Washington in the opener, or, the lapses at the before the half that seem to have been going on the last couple of weeks. And I think Carson eventually has to say, I don't want to cuss. Is this a podcast I can cuss on? You can bleep me out.
We can always bleep you later.
Carson's got to get to a point where he says, fuck these people.
Yeah.
It's about me and my teammates, and I don't give a fuck what anybody outside the building says, because they already hate me. And if they already hate me, I have to remember that, I just need to go out and play and play for these guys, and don't worry about the noise. Don't worry about people saying, hey, you check down too much or, this, that, and the third, like just go out and play, let it fly and have confidence and have fun. And, I was talking to Jaws last week on my podcast. He told me a story about when they were booing him and they were in the huddle, he had run out to the huddle and everybody in the vet was booing him. And he like couldn't hide because the coach called him back to check a play. And he gets in the huddle and everybody's looking at him. And he kind of laughed and was like, well, I guess they still love me. And it was that levity that he said that was infectious in the huddle. And I think Carson sometimes has to just say, fuck them. Like, It's all good, man. It's just us here. It's us against the world, and lean into that. I really love Carson. I think he's got all the tools. I also think he's a fine leader. Like, that doesn't mean everybody's got different tools in the toolbox. He's not going to be some fiery guy all the time. I want Carson to be Carson. And that's enough to win you a Super Bowl. I really believe that. So I think he's just got to say, fuck it.
I don't know if it is the case, but who should be the one constant in his year, his mentor, his mentor, his confidant, so to speak? Who should be that guy? I'm not
sure. I'm really not sure because I've never been in a quarterback room and Doug's got so much on his plate. He's a head coach. So I suspect he can't hover over Carson nonstop. But if you think about 2017, we had Flip, we had Frank, and we had Doug. And you've got Deuce, who people forget too, like as an offensive influence. Maybe not so much on the quarterback level, but like there was this infusion of different perspectives and minds, and a lot of them were quarterback centric mindset guys. And I think that pool was kind of shrunk. So I'm not sure who the guy is. But listen, I think with Carson, a Sunday night like that, to get some confidence built back up, the throw that he made when it counted, like you can say the numbers weren't gaudy. He missed a couple throws. He's also running for his life. He's not throwing to anybody. To deliver that strike, to Fulgham, that's his name, right?
Fulgham, yep. I'm still trying to get comfortable with it.
It takes one throw sometimes. I really believe that. It's just like a rusher, okay? It takes one sack, like to get off the schneid, like a slump. Like I talked to Cam Jordan about this on my pod. Cam Jordan is one of the best in the league. Yep. He's looking up a month in the season. He's got no sacks. And he's panicking a little bit, and we've all been there. But like that one sack he got against Detroit, now they come in bunches. It's the same thing I got with the quarterback. You make that one throw, you get the confidence.
You mentioned Doug Pederson, and I want to bring him up for just a moment because you play for Doug, you know him well. You tell me if I'm wrong. This season, and I understand why because of the way they got out of the gate, but I've noticed a slight change in Doug. Doug took pride in being a player's coach, protecting his players. Even when they should be called out, he would take the bullet for his players. But I've noticed this season, he's come out there, he says, you know what, Carson, certain things unacceptable. Jason Peters, oh no, he left the game because of fatigue. Miles Sanders left the game because of fatigue. It sounds like Doug Pederson is starting to call these guys out a little bit more and expecting them to be a little bit more accountable. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I haven't seen all the sound bites, but I do think that's great coming from Doug. I mean, I think Doug walked that line pretty well. When I was there, we worked our asses off. Like I came from New England where everybody was like, hey, hardest camp, this, that, and the third. Like we worked hard in Philly. Those camps are no joke. There's things that Doug backs off of as a former player. There's things he lets go, but Doug's got his things. And I think Doug's always been pretty accountability centric, but I think maybe publicly now, he's not dancing around it as much anymore, but you could always use more accountability. I mean, really, it's on losing teams, you need veteran leaders to step up and help, but it can't always be, hey, players figure it out. Like, it can't be like, I hate player only meetings. Okay. All people talk about is, have they had a players only meeting yet? I'm like, oh, well that should work. Right. You just close the door for 15 minutes and all of a sudden all the problems we have as a team are going to go away. Players take control on the practice field and in meeting rooms, like peer to peer. but then you need coaches to back it up. And
Yep.
I think Doug's just got to keep the accountability going.
You played on a 2017 team that was decimated by injuries. And maybe decimated is not the right word, but you lose to Darren Sproles, you lost to Jason Peters, you lost your quarterback who was on an MVP run. You look at this team. I mean, this is ridiculous, the volume of players that they're losing. And we just found out that T.J. Edwards is going to be out for a while. Now Rudy Ford is going to be out for a while. You know, if they can just hang on, help is coming back. You know, Djak's coming back. Alshon eventually is coming back. But tell me the effect that's having on a team that's struggling, because, you know, they can't keep digging into the practice squad well, because that well's almost dry now.
It's hard, man. It's really hard. And it's hard mentally for certain players, because, again, if not everybody's healthy, you can't fully evaluate a guy. Like, you can evaluate Carson. We've done it for 15 minutes here, but, like, still, I just don't know until I see him throwing to real guys. It's I mean, we're freaking out in Houston because Deshaun doesn't have D-Hop. He's still got Fuller. He's got, you know, Hooks. He's got Cobb, Kenny Stills, the tight end. Now, I'm not saying Carson's playing as well as Deshaun right now, but it's just and then, like, defensively, I've been a D lineman where you've got nobody in the secondary. That affects how you're getting home. So it affects people's confidence. You know, Lane Johnson, who's one of the best in the game. Yep. He's got to play next to a different guard every week. Or, you know, if the center's got to Kelsey's got to communicate calls to a different guard and a tackle every week, like, it affects your job too. And then on top of that, it's just, it's one of those things you have to look around the league and say, hey, everybody's hurt right now, and not feel sorry for ourselves, you know, because injuries have been one of the biggest stories of 2020 so far. Now, nobody is as perpetually injured as the Eagles over the last 4 years. I don't understand it.
Right.
But it's around. I mean, you looked at San Francisco, you got to win. That was a lot in part because of some key players too that were out. I mean, you think we would have been excited about Nick Bosa lining up over Jordan, or, you know, who else they have? Richard Sherman being on the field, or even Jimmy G. Like, every team's dealing with it. You just have to adapt.
I'm going to ask you one more question about Eagles personnel, then we're going to move on to some more fun stuff or some more pertinent issues. You mentioned his name a little while ago, Derrick Barnett, and a lot of people here in Philly have been down on Barnett, being his former first-round pick, not living up to expectation. Break down Derrick Barnett for me, a young man who has unlimited potential. It seems like he's hot 1 minute and cold the next.
Yeah. I think for him, the biggest issue is staying healthy. I mean, like, this is such a big year for him, and I think he's going to continue to prove that he can be a guy that you want back, and that you want to extend, and maybe not at top dollar, but he's a guy who can be a good rusher in this league for a long time, and a good all-around player too. It's not like he just rushes the passer. I think Derrick is – the pros there is he has a rare ability to turn that inside ankle. If you see Derrick, and we kind of marveled at this a little bit, you see certain guys that the ends all have different skill sets. Derrick's is that the outside of his inside knee can damn near touch the ground as he's turning the corner. Like, I call him Gumby.
That's crazy.
He literally – he's that flexible. The guy that I played with that was 3 times bendier and is just so rare is Robert Quinn, who's closing in on 100 sacks in his career. And he went to Chicago, and he's like a year older than Leonard Floyd. So that's how young Robert Quinn is. Robert Quinn's going to have 130 before it's all said and done. Talk about guys that if they were on good teams, you talk about Canton. Derrick Barnett has that bend, and he also has pop and power. He's not the most built dude. He's not the, like, you know, I call him bad body and all that stuff. And he's not long, but he gets into people's body. He's explosive. He has good feel rushing. And if he continues to work on his hands, I mean, this is a guy who could have double digits any year. I mean, I really believe that. And you saw the other night, ran right through Trent Williams, blew up the toss play. But my favorite thing about Derrick Barnett is his effort. Like, watch that touchdown, the Ayuk touchdown. Yep. And we saw Jalen Smith chase down OBJ and finish in the end zone. And at first I saw it on TV and I was like, good effort by that kid. And then I saw the wide shot and he's loafing. Derrick Barnett is running past people to chase him down. And it wasn't his fault. I mean, that's
Right.
not his play. So it's not like he's in a panic because he screwed up. That's just who he is. And that's the effort that you see out of this kid at Tennessee. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a fixture in Philly. I really believe that. He could have 8-10 sacks this year. And it's not like you guys have had a ton of double-digit sack guys. Connor Barwin was one, but Connor was an outside backer. Connor was that outside backer type. So since Trent Cole, you haven't had an end, I don't think, a true defensive end that had double digits. So if Derrick is around 8-10 sacks, I don't know why anybody wants to run him out of town. He's got to stay healthy. That's it.
Hey, something you never had to deal with as a player. This COVID thing is crazy, man. And a lot of players, a lot of people within the organization, NFL organization, are holding their collective breaths, hoping this thing just doesn't explode. I thought the NFL has done an outstanding job in terms of minimizing the number of players and in front office personnel, coaches from contracting COVID. But now you're starting to see players, coaches maybe getting a little too relaxed because the NFL just sent out another mandate. If you people don't take this seriously, you're going to forfeit games. We're going to take away draft picks. Are you surprised that from what we're seeing that maybe players and coaches coaches have already been fined, that they're not taking this thing as serious as they should?
Well, I think it was coming into the season. I didn't think we'd get this far unscathed. Now, certainly we had a cancellation or a postponement, but I thought it'd be much worse, even in camp and coming out of camp. As that first week passed and we didn't really have anything that was popping up on the radar screen, I was like, man, these guys are doing great. I still think guys are busting their ass to get this thing right, but all it takes is one, right? That's the hardest thing. The NBA, we laud them, and I've done it. They're in a bubble. There's, 10, 12 guys on a team. You got 53 guys plus staff.
Yep.
You're bringing in guys that you're working out, especially the Eagles. How do you work guys out safely? And you've got to work out about 20 a week, it feels like probably. The league should crack down a little bit. The first guy in Tennessee that got it was a coach. Now, that's not saying he was out being stupid. It's not.
You're right.
It's not like we're learning about this thing as we go. So the players don't have a full understanding of how you might get it. The CDC is popping up with new updates every week. Wear your mask, be smart, stay home. It's football season anyways. What the hell are you doing out eating and going to a bar? And that was never important to me as a player, although I went to the bar a few times, but just lock it down, man. And you saw in Tennessee, one positive turned into 20. New England's not out of the woods yet. New England had no positive tests, but the incubation period is like 3 to 7 days. So I think as the weather gets colder, the NFL, and I'm not being alarmist, might have to stop and start at some point. They might have to consider bubbling. I do think the playoffs might have to be considered being a bubble situation, because could you imagine losing Cam Newton in the playoffs? That's where it becomes serious.
See, that's what I was going to ask you. Should the NFL consider going to a bubble format the way the NBA did?
I think listen, I think you try your best, and I would suspect this is what they're doing. Try your best to get this regular season slate as far as you can. They kind of lucked out with the bye week situation with the Steelers, but even so, the Steelers don't like that. They don't like their bye being earlier. They enjoyed that right in the middle of the season bye. They were getting Tennessee wounded. It felt like this was the right time.
Right.
And certain teams are like, hey, we're staying healthy over here, and you guys seem to be just tricking it off. Like, I'm pissed. You should have a loss. I actually think eventually they have to consider the playoffs being a bubble. And maybe if you get in December down the home stretch, it might get out of control enough because everybody's inside. It's colder that you need to delay a week or two. If we're lucky, we get to December that way. A bubble in the playoffs would actually be kind of cool. You could, Bahamas, D-Gun?
Yeah. There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
And we could get credentials.
I'm there, man. Well, dude, I'm out of work now, so
I don't care.
You got to get me.
You're still D-Gun.
You got to get me. You got to get me credentials. You're the big name now.
No, we're going to Bahamas. It's like Fight Island in UFC. If they set something like that up, it would be awesome.
I will love it, dude. Hey, look. You were a player on this side of the microphone for 11 years. Now you're on my side of the microphone. You become this media mogul. What's it like being an interviewer instead of the interviewee now?
It's hard, man. It's hard because you prep, you got things to say, like, but people don't like. I always think people don't care what I'm saying. You know, so I'm totally different as a guest. I try to be different as a guest than I do as an interviewer, but still I screw up at it. I mean, like, you know, nobody wants to hear what the hell I'm saying. They want to hear what Cam Jordan's saying when I have him on, or Flea, Red Hot Chili Peppers, or like, just, I've had some great guests and resisting the urge to, like, you know, be too big a part of the interview. I mean, that's the hardest part, is like, hey, it ain't about you. I know you prepped really hard, but nobody gives a shit what you say. And I'm not D Gunn. People don't trust me.
Stop.
But like, D, you've had 20-something. How many years were you doing what you were doing in Philly?
23 in Philly, 41 in the business.
So you've been at it 40 years. Like, people trust you. I'm breaking into the business. I know, like, players, we get certain opportunities, but I have to build the trust as somebody. So, like, on an interview, from an interview standpoint, I love interviewing. I love talking to people. But if I'm doing my Monday and my Friday show, I think what I try to do is, and we all do it, is talk about what you know. I mean, like, it's hard when you're covering all the teams, and I get caught sometimes, like, overextending myself or making an assumption or just taking something I read and running with it rather than, like, really digging and confirming it with the film. But, like, the hardest part during the season is scrambling to cover. I got listeners who are like, why didn't you talk about the Bengals today? I'm like, because there were 16 games. It's Monday morning. I haven't been able to watch all of them. But I love the grind. It replaces playing football to a degree.
What's the hardest thing about being an interviewer?
It's literally like playing in the NFL. You learn different things about yourself each interview and each year. It's like self-scout is big. It's like, did you answer the question for the person? Did I leave them enough room? The pause thing. Okay, like you and me talking, we know each other. Like, we're pushing football. This is smooth. But if I'm interviewing somebody I never met, like a musician or even a player that I've never met and may not have the best chemistry with, is like not being afraid of that pause. Because if you let that person just kind of, you let it breathe a little bit, they're going to give you something. They're going to sit there and think, or maybe they panic. It's like a game of chicken. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that's the hardest part, is like just self-scouting yourself, not being nervous. Also realizing that the person took the interview because they want to talk to you. Like, I always feel like I'm wasting people's time. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's an urge I have to resist, is feeling like a pain in the ass. Because for years, as you said, I was in the other chair where people were hitting me up in locker rooms to talk. And I think as long as I'm fair and I try to stick to what I know, and I don't and I pick my spots and having fun with it. And like, there's certain things you don't make fun of. You know, we have fun with the Falcons. Okay. I make fun of the Falcons. I make fun of the Lions. But when Dan Quinn gets fired, or, you know, when Bill O'Brien just got fired, you don't want to make fun of people. Like, I have a funny show, but I try to walk the line where I don't make it personal. And that's one of the biggest things.
You know, you were talking about being a pain in the butt, and when you were a player, at times you were a pain in the butt too. And I'm going to bring up one incident where your last year with the Eagles, I'm outside the locker room, and I said, you know what I'm talking about? And I said, Chris, can I talk to you for a moment? And you said, I'm going to go talk to my family. I said, okay. And all of a sudden, I noticed you're still standing behind me. He goes, D Gunn, am I not allowed to talk to my family? I'm like, what are you talking about here, man? What are you talking? I said, okay. You gave me this lecture about being able to go see your family, and I'm thinking, I don't know what happened to this all of a sudden.
It happens in the household, D. You know, you misread a look. You know, I had this. You got to understand where, and you know this because you've been doing it for so long.
Because I'm old as dirt, right?
No, but you've dealt with a lot of pissed off players, and I think the thing with me is I'm always willing to answer questions, and I'm always like, 18 was rough at times for me. Like, I was not in a good place mentally sometimes that year, and I'm walking out of the locker room. It must have been after Carolina, maybe.
I can't remember the game. I just remember the incident, and I said, you know what? I'm never going to forget that. And when you agreed to come on the podcast, I said, oh, yes, I'm bringing that moment up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Listen, I'm not immune to being a prick, and I'm also temperamental. But, like, what I tried to do for the most part was be there, be available. And I think, like,
right.
It's funny when I got to Philly, everybody was like, oh, he's so nice to the media. And, you know, giving me the media nice guy award and all that stuff. And but the thing is, what people don't realize is, like, this is nothing. Okay. I stood in front of my locker for 8 years, 1-15, 2-14.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is nothing. And St. Louis media was always cool to me because I did stand up there and ask and answer questions. I think that's part of being accountable. So that day I apologize, D-Gun. But it's one of those things. No. You have to, as a player, you have to be accountable. You have to stand up there. I know there's some days and there are stupid questions. You know this. Some of your peers ask.
No question. There are no question. Oh my goodness.
But you got to do your best because as a player, everybody gets a blow up or two. But your teammates are going to see that. If you're a leader, your teammates are going to see that, like, meltdown, and they might say, is he rattled, or, you know, is he not accountable? How am I going to be accountable? I just saw him shirk his responsibilities. He had a bad game.
Yeah.
And now he's going to be on the practice field telling me to step it up. Like, what do you mean? You can't even be accountable to the media.
Yeah.
You know, so I did. That was my personal way of doing things for the most part. But obviously some days.
Now, I will say this. I will tell everybody this. About a week later, we were in the locker room, and you came up to me and said, D-Gun, hey, I just want you to know, I wasn't trying to be a bleep. And, you know, I said, you know what? That's a stand-up guy right there. You know what I'm talking about. I said, that's a stand-up guy right there. You didn't have to do that. You know, you could have let it go. I was going to let it go. I didn't even think anything of it. But I said, you know what?
We're both busy enough.
Yeah, you know, so I said, that's a righteous dude right there. And I appreciate that, man. I wish there were 1,600 Chris Longs, Brandon Grahams in the NFL. Obviously, there can't be because you have so many different personalities. But I wish you were yeah, man.
Hey, one of the biggest travesties of you not being around there is not seeing you in BGS. Hey, dude, it was always, D-Gun, I told you every week.
Wrong again, D-Gun.
But that's the way he talks on the field too. Like, it's trash, but it's like, you know, he's always with a smile on his face. Like, that's why I love BG. You know,
man.
He just lifts you up a little bit.
Now, see, you're retired, but man, you have a full schedule. I want you to tell everybody what you're doing out there now, man, because I can't even keep up with you.
I can't keep up. So I got my podcast is called Greenlight Pod. We have a lot of Philly listeners. I love that. It's awesome. And I'm on Monday and Friday. So our pods usually drop Monday afternoon and Friday morning. And then I do Amazon Prime. We were talking offline. I don't like doing any media stuff where I got to wear a suit. Amazon doesn't make me wear a suit.
Right.
Tuesday I do, we record the Amazon show. And then Thursday night I do Amazon streaming. So like live stream with Andrew Hawkins and Kerry Champion. So
wow.
So busy week, but you know, I got the foundation on top of it, Chris Long Foundation, waterboys.org.
Yep.
I stay busy, but I have like I have a wife who's very understanding.
Okay.
You know?
Now, when it comes to the media side of Chris Long, do you do a lot of your own research to get ready for things? Do you have a team of people that may, you know, do research for you? How do you handle that? Because, man, being a husband, you know, you have 2 small kids, and now you got 4 different media entities as well. Yeah.
Well, it's hard. As you know, it's hard to dig into the numbers, and I think half of it is the meat and potatoes is watch the games. Okay.
Yep.
Watch the games. You're never going to be perfect. I'm not going to act like I'm grinding tape on the all 22 of every team in the league every week. But, you know, if I can see the game, take notes, like on Sunday, I wake up, study in the morning. Then I watch games from noon to the end of the Sunday night game. But it's like strategies about, okay, the 4:00 slate's kind of games I'm not going to be talking about. There's some stinkers. I'm going to go back and watch the game rewind of a lot of the first game, the 1:00 games while I watch the 4:00. And then the Sunday night game, I might watch, what I need to watch in the 4:00 game. And then I'm up till 3 catching up on the Sunday night game, wake up at, 8, 9 in the morning. The big key though, like you said, is what did I see? What numbers do I need to back this up? And that's why I got a dude here, producer, who's a research guy, Cowboy Reed. So shout out to Cowboy Reed. I hit him up with a bunch of stuff on Sunday night, and in the morning I'll wake up with numbers, but I know what I saw. And so the numbers are going to confirm or deny that. And that's kind of the way I work. And it's fun though. I love the research part on my own. Like I'm knee deep in the laptop all day long.
Okay.
My own account.
Did your dad have a direct influence on you making a transition to media?
Yeah, and not because he's not amazing at it, and I love watching him, but not, what not to do. Because I watched him and how famous he's become, and just like I know some people, because I'm outspoken, are like, well, Chris likes. I don't like being talked about like that. Like,
right.
It's a lot of the reason I'm doing podcasting and not on TV. Like, it makes me uncomfortable being on TV and you seeing my face every day. like, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where I'd rather be able to walk down the street and somebody be like, hey, I listen to your podcast. It's a different kind of like notoriety than you're on Sunday on Fox or ESPN, or like, you can't go anywhere. And so if I was to be successful, like if you do something, you want to be the best at it. Mm-hmm. If I was going to be the best as a suit TV guy, there's no getting out of it. Like, you can't escape. If you're a podcast guy, you can kind of do things the way you want to do it.
Right.
You got your own boss. My dad has to, he's got a lot of leeway because he's a fixture at Fox, but there's going to be things on Sunday where they're like, in the A block, we're going to talk about this. This is how it is. We got to talk about it for this long. My podcast, I produce it. I run it. I got a great co-host in Macon, a guy I grew up with. I got my research guy. My office is 5 minutes down the street. I don't have to travel to LA like my dad did for years across country. I got a nice setup for me. And I'm lucky, football paid the bills. When you're a pass rusher in this century, it's good money.
That's right.
Dad didn't make his money playing football. He made all his money after football. So studio job was like where the money was.
Does the podcast life pay well? I have no idea yet.
So it does, until you realize that you're running a business, like, and you have to pay people. So like, we had a great year, but part of it is like figuring out, okay, what are the expenditures? Because I intentionally, and this is another decision I made, is I didn't want to join, we've had offers to go under an umbrella,
right?
And get some muscle behind our pod, distribution, that sort of thing. So when I hit send, we've got 100,000 more people listening to it off top.
Right.
But I'm fine with living in the zone we're living in right now, where, a good day we're north of 25,000, and that's awesome for me. A year ago, I never would have guessed. I know it could be much better, but I also like the autonomy. And so I think the money's slower and the listenership is slower if you go alone, but I'm having bosses, and I would rather just slow grind and grow this brand honest, and like our listeners kind of, organically. There's nothing I'd hate more than somebody having like a platform that they love to consume.
Right. Yep.
And then all of a sudden they're like, who is this guy that I have to see on my homepage every morning? No. I work for myself. If you find my pod, I don't want to hear about how much you hate it. Just listen to something else, because you had to figure it out. And that's why I like doing my solo thing.
So you have no aspirations of one day going to NFL Network, CBS, NBC, Fox, anything like that?
You never want to say never, because I sound real tough until you see a check.
You're right.
I love working from home. I did the Thursday night gig for Amazon last year only because, in my mind, I got to travel to Philly every week. That's where the NFL Films headquarters right there in Jersey. So I get to see Philly again. And that was a place I was really missing last fall. And so to do that, and it wasn't my weekend, I still can like hang out, drink beers with my buddies on Saturday and Sunday. Like my life is important to me. Like, you know, what am I doing at a certain point? If doing podcasts is paying the bills, keeping me busy, I'm fulfilled. That's what I want out of life. Now, somebody could come to me and be like, hey, you know, come do this. It's going to pay this. It's going to be, I'm going to have to look hard at it. But there's also a downside to doing the big stage stuff. Like you get the Monday night job, not that I'm ever in the running for something like that, but on the extreme of the pinnacle of TV success.
Yep.
There's a 50% people hate you. Like, and your career is never going to be that you're like, people always think that's the guy that bombed on Monday night, or that's the guy that wasn't ready for the CBS studio show or the Fox studio show. Like grow at your own pace. That's the way I'm doing it.
You know what though, no matter, and I tell people this all the time, no matter how nice and professional you try to be in our business, there's always going to be a faction of people that's not going to like you because of your voice, hairstyle, beard, you know, clean shaven, color of your skin. If you try to please everybody, you would drive yourself nuts. But if you be true to who you are, and because you have that personality, you know, you're going to win over more people than not. And that's all you can do, man. You'll kill yourself trying to please everybody. It doesn't work that way.
Dude. And here's the thing. Somebody asked me about this, and you probably go through the same thing. And like, you want to do your new podcast the way you want to do it. You've got 40 years of experience. People in Philly love you. Your takes are awesome. You have the knowledge. There are going to be people that are going to tell you, hey, D, like to optimize it, you got to do this, you got to do that. Somebody asked me recently, because I had a buddy get a new podcast on a big platform. They were like, do you feel like you're competing with your buddy? I said, competing, like I'm only competing with myself, because for me to be competing with somebody, that would mean if they're doing better numbers, what I have to do is do what they're doing or do it more like them. Like in football, there is one measure for success, and that's your tape. And it's a production business. In podcasting, I could sell more if I go try to do what, you know, podcaster X is doing, be more sensational, grab headlines, you know, button up my show a little bit. But I'm not going to be happy with my product. So I'm competing with myself. And that's the way I look at it. And I, if my ceiling is 25,000 or 50,000, you know, downloads, I can live like that the rest of my life if I'm being me. But I'd rather do that than 200 and be some fraud.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. One other final topic I want to talk to you about before I let you go, because I've kept you way too long, is, you know, I have the utmost respect for you, not only as a person, but because of your commitment to the Water Boys Initiative. And for people out there that don't know what that's about, it's an initiative where they dig wells in East Africa. You've been a part of this for a long time now. Have you just donated money, or have you physically gone over there? I know a lot of players, NBA players, NFL players, have donated a lot of money to this cause.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, to get this thing off the ground, obviously, like, we donated a ton of money. We funded this thing back in, it's been 5-7 years almost since I went to Tanzania for the first time. So basically, I fell into this thing by going to Tanzania one off season. Maybe it was after 2012 season. I went with a guy named James Hall. Do you remember James Hall? He played for the Lions for a long time. Great rusher that played in obscurity and then ended his career tragically in St. Louis. I feel bad for my guy. Shout out to Jay Hall. He was my big vet. He was like my OG. So I said, OG, let's go take a trip. Let's go over to Tanzania. Let's climb Kilimanjaro. He's like, you're crazy in an off season, but I'll do it with you. We went over. We loved it. Also, we got to see the disparity in the way of life. And one of the things that we take for granted here is clean water. Now, ideally we do, but in some cities and counties, and in more than you think, water sources are contaminated or scarce, especially in a time of COVID. Like, we're working domestically right now on Navajo Nation. The water shortage there is absurd. You know, you're 18 times more likely to not have access to clean water as a normal white American if you're Native American. And those numbers go up, of course, if you're Black American and that sort of thing. Like, there is inequity here from a water access standpoint. And but it just pales in comparison to what we saw over in East Africa. And, it's one of the leading killers of children from ages 1 to 5 around the world. I mean, kids are dying because of diarrhea and waterborne illness, and women and girls are taking these dangerous treks to gather water 5 miles away, dangerous treks. And, what we've done there in East Africa is we have installed about 100 large solar powered wells. They serve, 4,000 to 7,000 people a pop usually. And we're closing in on 400,000 people served. And our goal is 1 million. And we've had a ton of players join in. We've also had NBA players join in, as you said. And every year I go over to probably once a year, and we bring veterans over, wounded veterans and retired NFL players. We had Connor Barwin go, for instance, for Philly fans, and we climbed Kilimanjaro. That's the reason, I went for the first time. And so we bring all these populations together, like veterans, NBA players. We also started a domestic program. We're just trying to attack this thing from all angles, and it's been great. But the fans have, just like when we did education stuff, the fans are the ones who like, we get most of our donations from like small donors, not the big ones. We get people that fund a whole well, but the backbone of what we do is fans and listeners, like the people listening to your podcast. So waterboys.org. I appreciate you guys.
Chris Long, I can't thank you enough, my man. Incredible career as a football player. Incredible career now starting out, podcast, the Water Boys Initiative. But I'm not surprised because of who you are, what you stand for, your personality, and your commitment to so many things. I wish you nothing but success in life after football. I'm going to be listening in to your podcast just to say I know Chris Long. And I've had Chris Long on the Gunn On One podcast, man. So thank you so much, man, for coming on D Gunn's podcast.
D, you're the man. I always had the utmost respect for you. You're a fixture, bro. I wish you'd have been able to cover me my whole career. I would have been a lot happier. So,
thank you, man. That means a lot to me coming from you.
Thanks, buddy.
And hey, thanks everybody for listening in to another edition of Gunn On One, the podcast. Special shout out to my man Chris Long, who's a tremendous individual as an athlete and more importantly as a person. So that's going to wrap up this edition of Gunn On One. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and of course tune in next week for another edition as well. So until then, stay blessed, everybody. More importantly, always be a blessing to whoever you encounter. So. One is a production of D Gunn Enterprises in Pederson Square Garden. Alvin Shabazian and Wes Pendleton are the executive producers on behalf of Pederson Square Garden. Lead producer is Derrick Gunn. Associate producer is John McNeil. Sound design, mixing, and mastering by Alvin Shabazian. Original music by Weatherman. For more information about the podcast, visit gunonone.com. And please don't forget to subscribe and give us a positive rating if you're feeling the show. Thank you.